All right, everybody in Cumberland County, I'm Steve Soloff with InformTheVoteNJ.com, where we work to bridge the information gap for voters in Cumberland County. As local newspapers don't provide in-depth candidate coverage, we're here to meet the candidates and ask them substantive, direct questions about the elections so that you don't have to waste your time figuring out what's going on or scratching your head. So today we're here with Robert McQuade. He is running for Millville City Commissioner. There's one seat open for that, and there are 3 other candidates. So before we dive into the specifics, I'd like to give Rob an opportunity to introduce himself. I found some information online that he has background in local government with the school board, the city commission, and law enforcement. But I'd like to give him an opportunity to talk about it and give anything of importance that I may have missed.
Hi folks, how you all doing today? I've been on this Millville School Board. I was there for 9 years. Progressively, we worked hard to help our students achieve better in life there. I actually was a first-time special ed student with a learning disability I had, actually to the Board of Education. I was there through the superintendent, which was Dr. Gentile and Tony Trungone. I was actually there to help hire Tony at the time, which I hear he's gone now. The time I was going to run for city commission was in 21. I had picked up the petitions, and then I had a lot of issues with my parents, so I decided not to run, and I put it down. In early August, late July of 21, Kurt Hewitt called me and asked why I put him down, and I told him what I just said, and he wanted me to think about it. He wanted me to run with him on his team. So I did. I picked up the petitions, and in 28 days I had 375 names. So I ran with him. I lost the election. So after that, I kind of petered back for a while because my parents both passed away of COVID. And then I was in the hospital with COVID, and then blood poisoning and food poisoning. So it was a very bad year. But towards somewhere in January, Jim Quinn decided not to run. So they asked if I would run, and I said, I don't know. I said I had so much lost in my life.
Yeah.
So I said, give me a day to think about it. So I called him the next day. I was going to say no, but Kurt talked me into saying yes. So it's history. I was on there for 11 months. That time, being a commissioner, I took at least 3 months to learn the job. And my main department was streets and roads. I told my director there, I said, look, I'm the commissioner, you are the director. He goes, no, you're the director. No, I'm the commissioner, the pencil pusher, you're the director. You teach me what we need to do for, sorry about the cat.
Gives a little character,
yes,
and personality to the interview.
Anyway, he taught me streets and roads and things that we needed to do and what needed to be done. I actually went out with the guys as often as I could, and even on the weekends, picking up trash with Chris Finch on the back of the trash truck. I went out with them on painting curbs and cleaning up areas in town, besides my little TV pickups that I did. So, and actually I also went out, Mayor Orndorff was in charge of code enforcement. She gave me permission to go out with her code enforcement. We went out and we actually removed a lot of squatters at that time. The squatters were taking over houses, and there was a lot of drug activities, and we were getting called by a lot of neighbors in the area. So I went out with them. I told this code enforcement to hit the property as much code violations that you could. Contact the owner, find out if they want the house or not. Most of the owners didn't. They weren't even in town. They lived in the Carolinas and Florida, Tennessee, and they wanted to get rid of the property. It was just a family who passed away. A lot of them were family who passed away from COVID. So therefore we called Sheriff Augustino. Augustino got a hold of the mortgage company, put it up for sheriff's sale, and we got rid of a lot of the squatters. Now with the old factory, that was actually a nightmare for many, many commissions. I actually went to arbitration with Joe Suey in Linwood for 15 hours to negotiate the sale of that property. And it was depending on if Anthony DeSantis was going to tear that factory down in a time frame that we gave him. If he didn't, that factory would convert back to the city, and then we could resell it again to somebody else. As you see, it did go down, and the factory is leveled, and they are cleaning it up slowly but surely, but at least we don't got to look at the dilapidated buildings. But there were some people in the city that just didn't trust DeSantis, and you just got to understand Anthony. He's not like our culture here. He's from Brooklyn, so he's got a harder, funny attitude about himself. So, but he is a nice guy, and he'll help you. It's just he's harder. It's that Brooklyn accent. So, with my background with police, I was a part-time police officer for about 15 years. I foot patrolled with Lieutenant Tim Patrick and Lieutenant Sills, who is also our animal control officer. Give him thumbs up because he does a good job. So we did many arrests out there, and we did a lot of even chasing down shoplifters to motorbikes that were in the way, and the cat's going to try to kiss me. And
maybe you need to do a citizen's arrest of a cat getting in the way.
Bad cat. So things that they can't do now, we could do back then. So you know, it's not all bad. I mean, I know they can't chase them because there's a liability and law issues, but there are ways to go around that, and we could get into that later when Steve wants to.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, that was a lot more information that I was able to find online.
I do want to tell them about the one thing you probably found online, and if you could dig that photo out.
Yeah, which one?
There was one, they supposedly school board member was arrested for impersonating a police officer. Well, I was a police officer, retired part-time, okay? You can't get a retired police badge unless you have a certificate from the police academy, which mine was from Vineland.
This is the award
okay?
one.
So what happened that night, folks, and I left it on Jim Quinn's show too. That night, I was sitting at my mother's property where I'm at now for New Year's Eve. My dad was in the hospital. But my wife is also sick with emphysema. So I had to spend my time between taking care of my mother and my wife. I was on my way home from 18 Hayes Avenue to 511 North 6th Street. On my way home, there was a man who used to help me pick TVs up, and his name was Tyler Pettit. Tyler was at Bojo's with Mayor Quinn, and Jim Quinn can verify this, Joe Pepitone, and Pep can verify it. He was there with them partying. I was supposed to go, but I didn't go because, as I said, I was taking care of my mom and my wife. So Tyler called me and asked me to pick him up. So I said, all right, I'll stop and pick you up. So I pulled over, come down High Street. I was heading southbound on High Street, parked in front of Bojo's. As I got parked there, I opened my door, and there was a herd of vigilantes, it looked like, coming out of the bar, and they surrounded my truck. At first I thought they were coming after me, and then I realized they were fighting. So I told them to get out of the way because Tyler was trying to get into the truck. As Tyler was getting into the truck, Tyler got punched in the head, knocked out, and on the ground. And then the dude hit my truck and put a big dent in my hood. I said, this is ridiculous. So I got out. There was an officer I saw pull behind me. Tall officer, I don't know his name now, but I walked around in between my truck and his car. A bouncer had a guy on the ground, and he had him handcuffed and had his knee on his back to hold him in place. The officer was just standing there looking at him, okay? So I asked the officer, look, since the bouncer got this guy, could you get this gentleman that's running down the street, well, he's walking very fast at that time, because I want to press charges on him. And I'm sure Tyler does because he's knocked the hell out from it. So the officer looked at me and he says, no. I said, I want to get him and press charges. The officer says, no, I'm not doing it. I said, okay, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go get him. I'm going to get a citizen's arrest. And now, if anybody out there wants to argue with me and tell me there's no such thing as citizen's arrest, they're full of shit. Because when you have a SORO license with this to do security in New Jersey, the only power as a security officer you have is a citizen's arrest power. So the security officer has the same power as me, you, Steve, and you who are watching. We all have citizen's arrest power. As long as we don't go overboard and, you know, like a cop, beat the hell out of somebody. So I went to chase the guy. They said they hollered for me to stop, but I didn't hear them. When, of course, when your adrenaline's up, you don't hear much. And if you don't have a radio, you definitely don't hear much. I know that from experience from chasing people as a cop and security at the mall. It used to be fight night at the mall. So anyway, I almost had the guy, I called him, and then I turned around to talk to Officer Shipley pulled in. And she started yelling at me, and next thing I know, another officer attacked me, but I didn't know who it was. And I ended up using anti-police tactics on someone that would tackle you as a cop. I ended up wrestling the cop around. Then they realized who I was. But then Shipley was very upset, and she decided that I had a fake badge and trying to play cop, which the badge came from Smith & Wesson, and as I said, you have to have a a certificate from the police academy, which mine came from Vineland Police Academy. So that's how you get those badges. If you don't have a police or some type of law enforcement certificate, you're not getting one of them from Smith & Wesson. You're going to get one from the bubblegum machine. So that's basically what happened that night, and it was thrown out because the Board of Education in Trenton sent me a letter stating that if I was convicted of this, I would have to leave the Board of Education, okay? And I understood that. I was allowed to still go to the meetings because I was still innocent until proven guilty. So we went to court, everything was cleared out, and I was found not guilty, basically. So, in a nutshell, the Board of Education sent a letter stating that I was allowed to continue with my seat because there were no charges pressed, and I did nothing wrong. That was in 2019. So as you can see, I was on the school board from 2019 till 22, and then I became commissioner. If I was guilty of a crime, I would have never became those positions because you can't hold those positions if you're guilty of a crime. And right here in 2016, and I'm going to have Steve post this because as you see right here, there's me with Mayor Santiago giving me an award for doing the same thing I did when an officer on Oak and 3rd Street was chasing an individual. Well, I was picking up televisions with Tyler and with Mary Messick. Before they knew it, because I had pulled the truck over, and stopped, and I was out of the truck, I tackled the guy down and threw him on top of the hood of my vehicle, and the officer came up and said, "Thank you, McQuade," and then the officer took the guy and threw him on the ground and cuffed him. Of course, Tyler, being the smart ass that he is, he got out and said, "That's police brutality." So I told Tyler to shut up, and we put him back in the truck. And I ended up at the next city commission meeting for a award for that. And Steve,
you'll have to look for it.
Let me find it real quick. Yeah, an award for that, because
you know what I'd like to point out too, as you look for that, I really appreciate you being voluntary with all that information, because it's a very common, I don't know, circumstance that when you're looking for information, a lot of people will tell you, well, just Google it, just Google it.
Yeah.
And when I'm looking around for candidate information, I do Google people's names, and this article about this arrest at the bar was one of the only pieces of information that I could find. And if I just assumed Google knew everything,
yeah,
it would just be a couple of random newspaper articles that barely explain the situation. And so I just want to say I appreciate you taking the time to not only talk to me about this today, but to be upfront about what happened, because
nobody would know.
I would just assume you got arrested for getting in a bar fight.
Yep.
That's all I would know.
Jim Quinn asked me the same thing too, that December after I left and lost my seat to Steve Watson. He interviewed me the night Steve was getting sworn in, so we did the same thing. But here, he's gonna put this on. It's kind of dark because I had a photocopy of it, because my original got kind of destroyed when we moved to the house. But this is a certificate that Santiago gave me for the appreciation of taking that person down. And for the officer, I think the officer, he's Chris. I think Chris does a lot with what Rich Cott did with the kids, and he does like play streets and those kind of things with the dunking booth and everything. So Steve's active into the community activity. Like we used to have, he was a part of, Chris too, with us. I worked with Harry Kramer as a class 1 doing community policing, and Chris was a part of that too. And that's a big issue. Community policing, bicycle cops are fine. Walk patrol were the best, because if people remember me when I walked patrol with Sills and other officers, the neighborhoods were calm. The bad guys that were causing problems would go a few blocks down. Then Harvey decided to put multiple of us out there on the weekends and during the week, and they kind of just petered away and went to other towns. It's not solving the problem for Cumberland County, but at the time we were trying to solve the problem for Millville. Uniform presence is a definite answer to controlling it, and I don't care who says no, it isn't, it is. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, that's a lot more information than I was able to find on Google, the knower of all things apparently in this new generation. But so let's get more into specific information about this election.
Okay.
I spoke to the current commissioner, Ranello, the other day, and she brought to my attention that right now the specific seat is for Parks and Public Property Department. So you mentioned before we started recording that could change, but I do want to try and address that, assuming that it doesn't change.
Right. Yeah, it can always change if they, the mayor and the vice mayor wants to do a reorganization, because usually, see, a commission, like I said, is a form is a board, and boards usually change positions if things aren't going good, and they have a time frame, and that's usually the time after the election in January, where it's a reorganization. So it could stay, it could not. It depends on what the vice mayor and the mayor choose for their fellow commissions to be at.
Right. So just assuming that you do take that seat and it doesn't change, let's talk about what that department does and what Ranello said some of the current issues are. So right now, it seems as though there are opportunities for disorderly conduct in parks and public spaces. So how would you, or what would your ideas be to address making sure that public property is maintaining an orderly atmosphere?
Well, I'm going to go back to when I was an officer, class 1 with Sills. Most of those incidents when I was there took place during late afternoon, evenings, and we patrolled those parks. We went in and we actually played basketball with the kids. We interacted with not just kids but adults, people fishing, talk to them, how they feel, are they happy, do you feel safe, you have any concerns, and you believe they would give you, even the kids would tell you, oh, these people were doing this and that and over here. And same thing with the fishermen. They don't want to go out and tell somebody,
but
they'll
tell you. You're on the beat and you're on the pulse of the information.
And you have to become their friend. You have to show them that you're friends with them, and that you are not there to arresting you and going to run a warrant check on you. And that's what most of them think. And that's not what the cops are doing. They're trying to get into these areas to work and get information from these people. So if we're in these parks, meanwhile, while we're getting information that could help us in another crime issue, we're also making a nice presence of safety within the department. Even the patrol car, they don't see the officer walking around, they just see a patrol unit there. They're less likely to do anything with a police car sitting there.
Right.
So that's one way how I would do it. With parks, I make sure they do a great job. I love the guys. I mean, I worked with them actually because Samantha's department was in with my streets and roads. They were separate, but I used to go out with them, not as much as my guys because it was my department, but I went out with them and even told them they were doing a good job. But all the departments are working shorthanded, so I think they do the best that they can with what they have right now. But that's how I would, with the disorderly, I would be suggesting to the mayor for funding and the vice mayor and the cooperation of Kurt Hewitt, the police commissioner, for more class 1s, or maybe off-duty officers if they would want to come in, because we did that when Harvey was there as well, off-duty officers coming in and patrolling these beats. Now, I bring Harvey up a lot because I worked with Bill Herman at the military base. He was chief, and I also worked with him on the school board. And he's the reason I got on the school board, and Herman's the reason also I got on the police department. Because I thought because of my learning disability, I wouldn't be able to write reports and hinder me on the computer. And he said, no, you keep keynotes, keywords you use all the time, and then your sergeant to lieutenant and captain will go over the reports. So he worked with me on that, and I kind of got more self-esteem working with the department, not alone working the military base, but being out with the people made me more communicating with people, and I like people. So we were going out. I used to do animal control when we knock on doors and look for license, and that was another way, a great way of actually not just checking to see if you have a license for your dog, and but also get an opportunity to talk to you, see what's going on in your neighborhood, like in Center City. But it's funny because I'd go knock on the door, you'd answer, and you go, yeah, officer, and then you just tell them, I'm here to just see if your dog's registered. Yeah, okay. And then we just talk. But if they weren't registered, I didn't write them a ticket right away. One person I let go 4 times. I went from June, and then I went back to them in July, then I went back to them in August, and went back to them in October. Finally, September, I wrote them a ticket, so they agreed to it. But
enough's enough, right?
But I enjoyed working. I enjoy working with people, and I like Millville. I grew up here. I was born here in the Millville Hospital in 1965. So Millville's my town. My parents came from Wimber, Pennsylvania, and they came here because they didn't want to be coal miners and have a husband of a coal miner, my mom. So they came here, and the glass houses were advertising. And that's the lifeblood industry of Millville, the glass houses.
Right.
But when NAFTA came in, I hate NAFTA, Clinton brought that down, and it just took everything away. It took it over to Mexico and China for free trade. And that's what killed these glass houses. I believe if NAFTA wasn't around, these houses would be here. Millville became a town that got sucked in on Section 8, which isn't bad, but it is bad because I have friends on Section 8 and friends that aren't on Section 8. Emil Van Hook ran with me back in '09, and he said he passed away. He was so stressed because he lost the election that he said that he sold the city's soul to the devil when he took the money from Section 8. He didn't realize what was going on until after the fact. So what he was going to do in 2009, he was campaign on a K9 cop on every street in Millville would be patrolling to get it under control. And that goes back again to uniform presence. K9s do control stuff pretty good. So he realized that, we lost our factories, we sold our soul to get this money to help keep the city alive, but in return it killed us.
Right. It had good intentions, but it didn't work out the way.
Yes, and there's so many that I know that are on Section 8 that live on Buck Street, and Arnold Bell is one of them, and Arnold is a good guy, and Arnold loves to help his people, and he's on Section 8, but he says he would rather be out of those areas, but they're stuck there with these riffraffs.
Okay, so yeah, that seems like a broader issue.
Well, it wasn't too bad when we did foot patrol in those areas as well. You notice I'm pushing foot patrol.
Yeah,
Uniform.
it seems like one of your big agenda items would be just increased police presence, but hopefully friendly at first, so that you build good relations.
It would be community policing, and which is always friendly, getting to know the people, and
you're there to help, not to scare people or whatever,
and getting information on the ones that are causing problems.
Cool. Yeah. Along the same vein, I had heard through rumors in the town that the homeless encampments were a problem, and then I actually went out myself and walked along the river and all that kind of stuff, and I saw a few things. They didn't seem too bad, but then I talked to Ranello the other day, and she's more directly involved with it, and she said no, it is a problem, but some developments have happened over the past couple of years that enable her to address it, but I'm just wondering maybe what you would do to specifically address the encampments.
Well, they're not on High Street, thank God no more camping out in store cubby holes. They got rid of that. Like, I was out of office in 22, so in 23, somewhere in that time frame, Commissioner Hewitt got a handle on that, because like right across from Larry DePalma's, he's got an encampment across the street. There are still people camping here at Union Lake at the boat ramp here. There's a guy living in the car. Now, I don't know if he's the one defecating behind the car in the woods with toilet paper, but other than that, I mean, he's not causing no problem, but he is defecating. And we need an area in the county needs to address the whole thing, because it's not just a Millville problem, it's a county issue. We don't need them in the parks, because that's not helping the problem with citizens trying to go and relax and have a good time, and you got a homeless camp. I was looking if we can't get help from the state and the homeless shelter is like booked. I was hoping we could try at one time, which some of the commission liked it and others didn't. I wanted to even take the old wood school and turn it into just an area to get them in and get them evaluated, let them stay there asleep, and get a hold of the state so we can move them to areas that can help them and keep them from spreading out throughout the city. But the problem is that Atlantic City and other townships are putting them on buses and they're bringing them here. So as we clean them up and you move them out, more come. And again, the police presence would be like when I patrolled, we had them sleeping on benches. We had them camping out on the boardwalk on Captain Buck's Park. We had to pack them up and move them. You got to keep moving them. I felt bad because they're homeless, but a lot of them are out there because they have mental illness, and a lot of them are, and I know from experience, and they're drunk. So as an officer, we had to call rescue to take them to the hospital, because we couldn't leave them now, because if they get hit by a car, the officer in the police department is liable because they got hit by a car. So now we have to call the rescue so we can clear us in the city. So it is a problem. It's a problem that the city alone isn't going to be able to fix. We're going to have a joint effort with county commissioners and state officials.
Right.
And it's a problem throughout the country. I mean, thank God we're not like San Francisco.
Right. It's not that bad yet.
No, but I've been to the parks. There's not a whole lot. There are some though, and you might not think they're homeless living there, but they are, because some of them are smart. They'll take their tents down during the day and then they'll put them up, because we had another one besides the guy in the car on Sunset. They were camping behind the pump house for a couple days. So he ended up moving too. But you know, they're in the woods and they can cause problems. Like I said, I don't know how she's going to figure out how to move it. I'd like to know. I just know by being law enforcement officers, and how I would do it is just patrol and move them. Right. Talk to county commission. What can we do to, Yeah,
it's a very
it's
direct
a three
approach.
City. Yes, it's a three city.
If you have people walking around aware of it, then you can at least start talking about it and addressing it, as opposed to like just abstractly talking about it.
And they are human too. I mean, they're not, some people might look at them as dirtbags and blah, 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 but this isn't the old West of 200 years ago. You didn't like the person, they shot and killed them. We can't do that. No. So, and we can't just set them on a boat and send them across the ocean.
No, you got to figure out a humane way
we got to
deal
think,
with it.
Correct. And I'd like to see an area where we, if we are having to keep them in our city, an area we can contain them in, where they can come and go, like at the homeless shelter. Yeah. And try to get them back on their feet and move forward. Sure. So that's a touchy situation, because some people just want to throw them on a boat and send them to China or something, and others want to keep them.
That's obviously not going to work.
But again, I keep saying police presence, and there's no money for police, but there's certain ways to get that, and hopefully through the state that could help, or with our state official could help us. Michael Testa, on ways of getting grants for cities that are in need, and also Congressman Van Drew trying to get money, let alone fighting Atlantic Electric. He's trying to get money for law enforcement. And if we have to, I'd like to send lobbyists up there for it, because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, gotta find some leverage point somewhere, right? So we addressed some of the stuff that Ranello brought up, so now I'd like to move on.
Oh, one thing with the homeless, I did get a couple of them off the street myself. I actually got them into motel rooms, my funding, and then helped them out and got their families in touch with them. Families came and visited them. Families got to talk. It took about a month, but they began to cling to their families, and now they're back with their families. So that's what I'm talking about. If we can help them like that, it's not just, oh, we're going to put you here and that's it. We got to put them there, and we got to find their families. We got to do all these resources to get them off our streets. But if we get rid of them, and the other cities keep sending us more of their homeless, that's going to cost us money. So we need to find out where they're coming from, and then we could charge those cities because they were sent here. Because when I was a cop part-time, we were getting people from Camden and getting people from Atlantic City that the city gave them tickets to come down here, bus tickets.
Sounds like some of the stuff you hear on the news. All right, so yeah, let's move on to the issues that Sui brought up.
Okay.
As you know, as a commissioner, you're going to have to deal with the broad issues, not just the one for that department.
Correct.
And then vote on those issues as
Correct.
well. So one thing that he brought up was the balance of economic development in this rural area.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, cities need to generate tax revenue however they can to keep the cities modern. But when people move to a rural area, they don't necessarily want 1,000 factories and then all new traffic and the noise and all that kind of stuff. And so we brought up that in Millville specifically, 50% of the land can't even be used because it's either protected by environment regulations or they're like gaming land and all that kind of
Correct.
stuff. So
he's correct on that.
The question then becomes, how do you balance attracting economic revenue or tax revenue while maintaining the rural feel?
Well, we have areas in town that are designated for that.
Mm-hmm.
At one time, taxes weren't as high as they are now, not just because of the times that we're in now, but even for those times, like if you paid $500 to $1,000 tax for the year, say back in 1980s,
Mm-hmm.
that was still a lot of money. It's because we had those glass houses here. We had 3 big main operating glass houses. Armstrong Corp, Wheaton's, and Duran Glass, which doesn't produce what it used to produce. But for us to survive here without overtaxing everybody, it's either that, because retail, it always gets abatements and abatements and abatements, and it doesn't help. So retail helps with maybe a part-time job, and like I said back in 2005 when I ran, it's a part-time job or a retiree job. So it's not going to be something full-time unless you're in management and making good money. Although minimum wage is $15, $13 an hour right now. So we do have designated areas in the town still. We have Orange Street, which has never been filled to its capacity yet. And then we have out the airport available to us as well. Now Millville actually has been blessed for industry because we have not just the railroad coming in here, and we just don't have 55, but we have Route 47 and 49 that conjunct together on Main Street in Millville, heading towards Wildwood and Atlantic City. So we also have the opportunity of tourism to come in here as well, instead of just looking at companies, because people going to the shore, we need to capture them coming in just for a while to eat. We need some nice shops and experience Millville, what Millville is about. And maybe they might want to stay for a few hours, or they go to the shore and they say, hey, you know what, let's take a ride inland and look at what Millville has. It has some interesting things, because they're on vacation, they want a tour. So we have all these opportunities, especially with the way the roadways coming in. Although I know the conjunction of 49 and 47 needs to be widening, because I was sitting talking to the vice mayor as I had to back up for a big tractor trailer coming towards me, and then a dump truck.
Yeah.
So, and that was heading north on 2nd Street into Millville. So but we don't own those roads. the state owns those roads. So that's an area that if they want to be widened, we'd have to talk to the state engineering, and the only sides that could really be widened right now would be J.C. Plaza side and Riggins. We could buy some of that well, the state could buy some of that property, but then on the other side you have the old bank, which Historical Society has, and then you have the old Luigi Pizza, which sits really close to the curbing too. So you either have to eliminate Luigi's Pizza building to make it wider, and Historical Society building, they're not going to eliminate it, but they would have to move that building from that site over maybe, I don't know, 10 feet or so to give some kind of roadway access. So it's quite a bit of money. So we do need another roadway coming in, as you mentioned, Nabb Ave.
Yeah, Nabb Ave. Just to introduce that topic to people who might not already know, when trucks come off Route 55 and head into Millville, they either have to take some sort of like convoluted route or go through Center City, Millville, which slows them down a lot. So the idea is Nabb Ave, which is off Sherman Avenue, they're going to put a road through the farmland that would go straight towards the industrial parks and the airport. This is a project that's been talked about for decades. It looks like they're finally underway with it, but so he said that, it feels like it's moving a bit slow. So yeah, I did want to touch on that with you as well, if, what your stance on that would be.
I mean, I thought it was going through, but as you said, Stewie said it's going slow. I'd like to know the reason why it's moving slow and why he thinks it's moving slow. And if it is, then we need to get a hold of our state officials, which is Michael Testa. Ask him to find out what's going on. We need to get them to move on this. And Congressman Van Drew would touch base on it if the state wouldn't move forward on it or move fast enough. That's why Congressman Van Drew, and I've been in touch with his office the last few days this week, is touching base with Atlantic City Electric on their pricing, because the state officials, they said, are not responding to that, and citizens are calling Van Drew. I'm giving you an option here for problems. If you're not getting an answer from the state, call Jeff Van Drew for any other problems besides city. So Jeff is going to see what he can do about stopping these problems. Now you can call him if you have a problem, and he'll send you a release form so that he can negotiate and talk for you on his behalf.
Right.
So that was, if I was where Suey was at now, I'd be after Mike, especially like at a breakfast, and bringing that up. So that's how I would handle that. Sorry, I'm swiping my face because gnats love me.
Yeah, the gnats are out
So I got
today.
gnats, I got cats on me.
Yeah, and I guess that's another thing, since you brought up the breakfast, not everybody knows, but, and I don't want this to come across as partisan, but in my journey getting into local politics over the past year, the Republicans do have a bi-weekly breakfast at Eastland Golf Course. Sometimes it's at Morris River, the fire hall,
Right,
whatever.
which is a very good breakfast.
But some people, they feel weird about going to a party line breakfast or like a Republican breakfast or blah, blah, blah. It is a direct way to just go meet, talk to people, get involved. Like, I've seen you there, I've seen Testa, I've seen Van Drew, I've seen Curtis Bashaw. So you
The
can
last
at least,
governor candidate was there too.
Chitterelli.
yes.
Yeah. So it might feel a little awkward or weird at first, but just to show up, shake hands, say, hey, I'm in town, I'm interested in getting involved, all that kind of stuff, I would highly recommend that.
Right, and they don't frown on you coming. I mean, they, if you're new, they know you're new, they'll introduce you to everybody, and it's a great way for you to get your problem that you have, that you think that your local government, county isn't solving, or the state. They're right there, so you can, instead of calling or writing a letter, you can just visually see them and talk to them.
So it sounds like one thing that you would do is, for economic development in Nabb Ave, is you would probably just bring it up at the Republican breakfast. You say, hey, Testa, what's going on with this? How can we help? Or, hey, Director Cilio and Romero and all those guys. you know, well, how's it going? How can we make sure it's moving forward? All that kind of stuff. At least
Correct.
Figure out what's going on. Yeah. So the next thing that Suey brought up was city competitiveness in terms of salaries for city employees. The way he framed it was, you know, inflation always goes up, and cities will compete with each other to get the best city
The
employees.
best officers.
Right.
Yeah, I can
And
explain
so
some of that too.
the idea is, how would you ensure that salaries are competitive so that there's none of this bottlenecking and turnover, that kind of stuff?
Well, yeah, there is competitive. I'm trying to how I want to word this now. There's a lot of competitive with the cities, especially when it comes to like professionalism, like firemen, police officers, and EMTs. We do pay the lowest, and I'm going to explain why we pay the lowest here in a little bit. So what used to happen, like when I became a cop part-time in 2000, what happened was officers would go to the police academy, say like the sheriff department would send them to the academy, and there might be like Vineland or Bridgeton would want them, but they went to the sheriff's department. So they let the sheriff's department put them through, and then when they got out a month or two later, the police department from Bridgeton, Vineland, or other neighboring towns would grab them. This way they didn't have to pay for the academy and all that training, which is a lot of money per officers,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
So they didn't have to pay for that training, and so they got a trained officer. He's already been out on the street for a couple months, so they can just take him and pull him over there and put him out on the street, because then the towns didn't care that if you only had a few months, because they needed cops. They now it's like 18 months, but on patrol before you're by yourself.
Sure.
But that's because the environment has changed. So I'm assuming that that mentality is still around, but police departments and cities have gotten smart. So now when they hire you, say Steve, as a cop, you're coming in, you have to give them at least 3 years or 4 years of being a cop there,
Right.
depending on the city. Some cities too. This way they get their investment back on you. And then if you move on, now you're moving on with even more knowledge, and you can get more money to a town that is dying for officers, but they want experienced officers. They don't want to go through that training stage.
Right.
So they're stealing. So that's the competitiveness that the city is having the problem with, because one, officers get paid too low, and firefighters, because they're putting their life on the line. Even EMT put their life on the line, because where were EMTs that were getting shot at? So Millville operates off of $36 million when I was there in 22. They operate off $36 million for the budget. The school board gets when I was there, and when I left in 22, school board would get $68.5 million, okay, from the state. Then you're going to add in the grants, and you're going to add in property taxes, and that come from the county and the city, and other little tiny grants that they get. It used to be the 21 Century Grant and a few others. Those grants would add up to the budget of $92 million. So 36 million here and 92 million here is almost, a million.
It's a weird concept.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. Although the school system is like a small town operating.
So are you suggesting that maybe some of that money could be reallocated to the city, or?
Well, the problem with that is that when they get that money, it has to, the 68 million, I always wanted it to give some money to the city if they could, because it's helping our students and our students' parents and keeping the community safe. But as we talked in our meetings, our private little meetings by ourselves and stuff, to do that, it'd have to come from the state, because that 68.5 million then was irrigated directly towards education.
Sure.
And different programs. The same with those grants. Now, I'm sure, again, our officials in Trenton might be able to say, hey, let's irrigate some of those, that funding that the schools get to help our students towards our police department.
Yeah.
Because the police are at the schools, but the schools have also got to pay for the officers to be there. Okay, which is fine. The schools are paying for them there, because I as a, you know, even on the board, I didn't have a problem with it because we make more money than the city.
Right.
So when they're not at the schools, there's no officers for the kids to protect them, because the city is so short-handed of money, and the officers are short-handed themselves because there's only like 6 at a time patrolling. Sergeant goes out maybe 7, a lieutenant, then you got 8, but they're supervisors, so they're inside a lot dealing with other issues.
Right. So then I guess to bring up the point, how would you get that money? You know, how would you get the funds?
Well, what you were saying, like with the school, that's what I was trying to explain with the school, if we could get it from there. How I would get the funds for that, I would go to my state officials. I'd go to Trenton.
Right.
And tell them, look, we need to be competitive down here. We need money. We have a lot of crime. Bring our crime statistics up there.
Right.
The amount. I'd probably bring 5 years of crime-related issues that we have in the city, and then bring the FBI report up, but also bring the city's own statistics.
Yeah. So raising awareness
to our
Trenton,
officials,
and that way
you can't promise because you go up there. But if I went up there with me, and I say I went up with I'm looking at making a citizens community group. I had a community relations group when I was on the school board, and when we were there, I mean, it was just, man, they just wanted to have advertised, the school parade, this and that. I said, no, we need a little more. I want to bring people in, and I want citizens, teachers, and students to come in, and we're going to have a meeting and twice a month. So Dr. Gentile at that time wasn't happy about it, but former Commissioner Pepitone was on the board with me, and he kind of made it a part of his evaluation. Along with, I got 4 pages, which Gentile wasn't happy about, 4 pages in the reminder for free, where he could publicize the school and talk about different things with the school. But to get back to the community relations, other portion of it is, we probably had about like 80 people, teachers, citizens, in the board chamber room, and we had a tripod with a giant tablet, and everybody came up with different ideas in the room first on, you know, what do you like to see in our school, or how can we help our schools with safety and stuff. So, you know, so they wrote down security, and I can't remember everything because we had multiple, but we wrote down whatever we thought that issue could be. And then say morale with the students, what can make it better for them, and how could we stop the fight. Then we wrote those things down. And then we had another topic with it, maybe like how can we make our students, our teachers, more happier to teach our kids, and wrote all that down. So we might have had maybe about 100 different suggestions. So we would take 2 of those suggestions, break it down to just 2. Then once we got the suggestions that we had, we would break into smaller groups. Everybody would write down their ideas on how to work together, citizens and all. We had a mastermind session, and everybody came up with different ideas. Then we came back as a whole group, discussed it, and that's how we figured out plans on what we're doing. And a lot of them came that they're doing, like with security in the school and other issues that are going, came from those community relations meetings.
Right.
So I would like to do that as commissioner, whether it's in City Hall, or I can even get like halls at Ferguson Court where we could just meet, and it's non-official. It's just we're all getting together as citizens and city officials to discuss issues and how we can fix it as a whole. And it's not going to be a bitch fest, because nobody don't like your idea. We would tell people if they started arguing with other people, like, well, you either calm down or you have to leave. We're not here to bitch at each other. We're here to solve a problem. When you bitch at each other, you're not solving.
Right.
When you're talking normal, you're solving, and it worked good. I know people get passionate about their ideas, as inventors are passionate about their products they come up with, but it's their baby. But you have to be able to look at it and say, hey, I like it, but can we define this and make it better than what it is?
Yeah, you break it down into actionable steps,
right,
so that you can try the first thing, see if it works, try the second thing, see
right,
if that works, as opposed to just a million ideas and everybody's going in 15 different directions.
But Dr. Gentile never threw those suggestions out either that we didn't use. He kept them, because they always went back into the next meeting after we fixed a problem. Then it went back for the next meeting.
Tick off the first 2 things.
Correct.
See what the next 2 things are going to be. You can only do one thing at a time, right?
And sometimes we'd put a citizen in, like Gentile would be up there, and we'd put one or two people to work along with him up there collecting the ideas. It gives people a chance to be involved.
Yeah.
And that's what we need.
And I'm glad that you brought that up yourself, because that was the next topic. You know, for somebody like me doing this website, trying to get the information out there, civic engagement and awareness of the different issues.
Right.
And it sounds like whether it's salaries or economic development, the first thing we got to do is start talking to each other and letting the public know what's going on, and then everybody can do their little part.
Right.
And so, yeah, it sounds like we kind of already... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a people person, and I care about people. Sometimes I care too much. It gets me in trouble because I end up getting bloodsuckers on me.
Yeah.
They want to suck stuff out of me money-wise. But I like helping people, and that's why I do the TVs. That's why I went around, because I got tired of looking them in the city.
David, what do you mean by TVs?
We pick them up and get junk the old TVs for the people.
Right.
And it was when David Ennis was the commissioner, and they had no way to do it, to pick them up, because they didn't have the guys. So I volunteered. And that's when I had my first partner, Tyler, and then Mike came in.
Yeah, that sounds similar to kind of what I'm doing. Is when I first started doing this last year, I went to the commissioner meeting and I brought it up and blah, blah, blah. And they had their legitimate reasons why they couldn't do it. And so at a certain point, if the people in government can't do it because they're like legally bound,
well, I actually had
then you step up and do it. Right, just take an afternoon and pick up the TVs, right?
I actually did have, when I was commissioner, I actually had my streets and roads guys see me picking up TVs, and I didn't ask them. I didn't ask them to do this. Because I was out with them, I working, and they see me out on my own with Mike and Tyler, who passed away, picking these things up. They would ride by. They said, "Hey, don't worry about it. We got the TV on such and such street for you." Chris Finch, he was a great one too. He'd pick them up too and gather up a TV or something. It was small enough to fit in the back of the city's SUV. And Tracy, who's no longer here, she was our code enforcement officer. She was also code enforcement for the Clean Green Community grant that we had. She was paid with that for the city that Chris Finch is doing now. And she would pick them up too. So when I was there, they were picking them up. I never asked them, could you go pick it up? They just did it because
they were aware.
Their commissioner was out doing things for the city, and that inspired them to do more.
Right.
And I can see their point, because if you're angry with people, I don't know if they are now, I'm not going to say they are or aren't, but if people are angry, you're angry at your boss and he wants you to do more, you're not going to do it. But if your boss is like, ask you to stay over to do a job, but he let you leave anytime you want to leave, early a little bit, or take a little, don't worry about it. You worked hard, take an extra half hour for lunch, say, right? Mm-hmm. If he asked you to stay over, I need this done before the other boss comes in, would you do it? Of course you're going to do it, because he's taking care of you.
Right, exactly.
So that's what I assumed that they did it for, but they were all a bunch of great guys at Streets and Roads and Parks Department. So funding wise, I mean, we're short-handed there. I know they have 2 that go around and pick up trash bags of leaves, so it leaves them from 10 to like 6, because there's a couple others doing some other things. So they are short-handed, and all our employees are really underpaid, and also they're working with no contracts. Their contracts haven't been settled or anything yet. So that's another issue why you have scruntle employees. I know citizens, you get mad about the public employees sometimes because they use taxpayer dollars, but without them doing the service, we got to do it. We got to go out and clean, because I clean Sunset up here because people throw their trash and beer bottles out on the side of Sunset off of Homestead all the way down the road. So I go out and clean it up. So, I mean, people throw trash on your curbside, you don't pick it up, and the city don't pick it up, it's going to make the city look like trash. So I can see why they may not be doing some things right now, because they're working with bad contracts. They're not negotiating anything. And what they did to Kurt was wrong.
What happened with Kurt?
He was removed from it because supposedly he mentioned something in the negotiations, and it was done in a city commission meeting, and they put Commissioner Ronella in charge.
Okay.
And the contracts still haven't been resolved yet.
Interesting. So many rabbit
That was
holes
brought up to me last
of
night
information.
by city employees.
Yeah.
So they're not happy.
Got it. I don't think we've touched on this one yet, but the road safety and off-road vehicles issue.
Again, I would do if I was there. I've even suggested it when Jody Farabella was there, but he just didn't have the manpower. He said. What Harvey did, and we did then is, and yeah, you can say, oh, Harvey, but it all worked out good. There's a lot of people who don't like Harvey.
Okay.
But he was good as a chief, cleaning up crime. And we had unmarked units, like a beat up Toyota or beat up pickup truck. Guys.
Just before you get too deep into it, for anybody who didn't quite pick up on the topic, there have been lots of accidents on the road, either with motorcycles or ATVs and other off-road vehicles. And throughout the years, when it comes up at meetings, oftentimes you hear it's a state level issue or the cops' hands are tied and all this stuff. So it just seems like an unresolved ongoing issue. So sorry to cut you off, but
it's all right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's exactly what he said. And the state is tying the cops' hands, the attorney generals, and with Governor Murphy, because they want them to be ignoring them, and they want cops to be like security, observe and report. But who are they going to report to? Because security observes and reports, and they report to police. So,
and then it winds up being an insurance issue.
An insurance issue.
If they pursue somebody and then they get hurt.
Well, the city,
blah blah blah.
Yeah, because like in LA and those places, they do chases still. Delaware, but New Jersey's, they're afraid to do the chases because I even had a friend back in the 80s. He got killed. Violent was chasing a drunk driver going down Dalsey Drive off of Chestnut, and there's a liquor store on the left-hand side of Dalsey Drive heading north up and on Chestnut. He got hit by the drunk driver and flipped the car over and killed him. Of course, yeah, the police department got sued, the city got sued, and that's the issue, is suing and stuff. But there's a safe way of doing it, and what Harvey did was we had unmarked units out there, beat up car, whatever, just an everyday car. Actually had regular tags on it, didn't say municipality, and guys were dressed looking like street thugs in the cars, riding around and interacting with the people, so the police didn't know who they were, which is street crimes. So what Harvey used to do with some of them that we couldn't catch is that the street crime guys would see them, they'd hang out, wave to them, and they'd just be hanging out, riding, and they might follow them to where they go park the bikes at. If they knew that the guys were going to sit there in that property for a while, they would call in, let the station know that the bikes are there, they're settled, and they can bring units in. So the street crime guys, sometimes they would go in with the bike guys, just talking about their bikes, hey, I like this, and that kind of stuff. And then police would come, impound the bikes for riding up down the street. They would say that neighbors called and take the bikes. And police would even interact with the street crime guys, like pretend that they didn't even know them, argue with them, tell them they would arrest them if they didn't leave, blah, blah, blah. So mainly when the issue was over with, nobody got arrested unless there was a serious crime. They just took their information, impounded their bikes, and a dead issue. No chase, no nothing, bikes caught,
right.
Bikes impound.
Mm-hmm. So basically you're suggesting implementing a similar strategy?
Yes.
Cool.
That is if Commissioner Hewitt would be interested in doing that, and he's friends with Chief Harvey as well.
Okay, sure. Then the next thing Suey brought up was the water and sewage in Laurel Lake needing upgrades, and that, I guess, can cost residents and business owners tens of thousands of dollars to upgrade either their septic system, or when they build a new property, it has to be up to this new code. So what are your thoughts on that?
That's a touchy situation. When I was in commission, we were talking about doing that, and we started some of the process. I'd have to see the schematics again on it, and who's interested in it and who still isn't interested in it. I mean, there were people that were interested in it because now they don't have to pay to have their septic tank emptied and maintained, their pumps They didn't have to have them replaced if they broke, which are hundreds and hundreds of dollars, or maintained, because you have to maintain them or you ain't got fresh water, and have their water tested to make sure there was no pollution or anything that may have gotten in there. And that can happen, just like with streams. So it's an iffy thing. I mean, I think myself it would be good for the community because now they don't have to worry about sewage. They don't have to worry about fixing that septic tank. They have water coming right to their house. They don't got to worry about that pump and maintaining that pump house. Mm-hmm. But I would like to see it as if the owner doesn't want it, to give them that option. If you don't want it, that's fine. But you know, when it's time to hook up, it may cost you more when it's time to hook up because we're opening the streets now. Mm. So, and everything's going to be being hooked up. Mm. So if you decide 10 years from now you want it, it could cost you more because now they got to reopen the streets, whether you pay for it through the city or you pay for a contractor to come in and do it. So it's kind of an iffy thing. I mean, I'd like to get into that a little more, like once I get into office, to see, you know, what the feel is, how far they're going to go with it still. Because I was, like I said, I was there in office, in that seat, discussing it with the former mayor and Joe Suey and Commissioner Kurt Hewitt, along with Mayor Romanek. So it was still up in the air. It's because some of the people down there that have that, I fear don't have the money to upgrade right then and there. Right. So I don't want to force them to upgrade if they don't have it. Mm-hmm.
Sounds like you're going in the direction of pushing it as far as you can, but not forcing anybody
correct
to sign on to it.
Yeah, it'll be there if they want to hook into it. Mm-hmm. And if not, but also like we had through Triad, we got some houses fixed. This is going into a point for the sewer here. Like Mary Messick got her house fixed. She got a new roof, a new heater, got the chimney taken off her house, and a few other things through a grant through Triad, which is in Vineland, and they work a lot with cities. So they paid for everything. She didn't have to pay nothing out of pocket, but maybe an application fee. Mm-hmm. I don't know, $50 or something, and she had thousands of dollars done. So I think it's up to like maybe $16,000 to $20,000 done on her house, new roof and everything. It's a half a double. So she doesn't have to pay any of that, but she has to stay in that house at least 5 years and for that grant to kind of peter away, or she can just sell the house and pay that grant off. Mm-hmm. If she sells the house. But if she chooses to live there and stay there for 5 years or more, she don't got to worry about it.
Sounds
so
like a good deal.
What I'm getting at is some of the people that can't do it now, and they're in Millville, they have to be Millville residents to apply for that. They could, when the city gets the Triad back in to do these projects, because I was a part of that grant, picking people for these projects.
Oh, okay.
And that was just to fix their houses up. Triad might come in with something that they're going to get, maybe have fundings for like maybe 12 people, enough for 12 people to get the sewer lines hooked in. So that would be something that the city administrator would talk to with Triad, and he would come up with, whoever that administrator would be at the time, they would come up with a game plan. Mm-hmm. And say, you know, bring it to the commission and tell the commission, this is how I feel we could get the money to help these people who really do want it but don't have the fundings.
Right.
And in the long run, it's a benefit to the city because when those people leave or move on, now somebody else will move in those properties and they will have septic and sewer water lines.
Yeah, that seemed like some of the direction in the county commissioner meetings, right, and that kind of stuff.
But if we go over the bridge, it goes into commercial township. Mm. So I don't know, eventually maybe commercial township might want a joint venture with us to move it in, but they would have to kind of, that would be another issue, and they would have to work with Triad on their own.
Got it. Cool.
That's something you can put on your site too. Triad, a community grant place. You want to put them on your site because there are things in there that not just Millville does with them, but they work with the state and they work with other townships.
Right. Just give something for people looking at my site.
Yeah.
An opportunity to see if they qualify for the grant.
Something in their town.
Get involved. Right.
Or their county.
Cool. The next thing he brought up was state mandates versus local needs, mm-hmm, which, you know, sometimes the state will make their laws, and then the community, or Millville, is supposed to comply, but sometimes those mandates don't jive with the specific needs of Millville. And so how would you balance that?
Well, some of those mandates, like we had them on the school board, we have a lot of them on the school board. And some of them you could go have state officials come down, where you go there. Mainly they came to us, and we would discuss why we don't want to do this. And some of them, they would take our reasoning and would say, okay, you don't have to do it. You know, they let us back off. But there's some, like say, there's a book they have, and we want this course taught about bunny rabbits, okay? And we're like, well, we have more things to teach them than bunny rabbits because, well, we want to teach them how bunny rabbits multiply. And we're like, well, we wanted to teach them how to do real math, okay?
Yeah.
And real reading. So the state could come in and say, look, you don't have to teach them this, all right? It's up to you, you don't have to, but we're going to cut your funding. And they will cut your funding.
Is by how much?
It depends on what the percentage could be. They could just by 5%, they could do 30%. It depends on what, each one's different on what they want. They make and choose what they want.
Right. So it's almost like coercion.
Yeah. It's to get you to do it. Now the cities can fight it. I would go to, if they didn't get your way, like like some of the board members didn't get our way, and we didn't want to lose that funding, and we couldn't make wave at our own meeting at Colliver, certain ones would go with a business administrator and the superintendent and go to Trenton.
Right.
And Tony was a good one. I hated to lose him. Some people didn't like him, but he was good. He was a good one to convince them and not to do certain things, but not cut our funding.
Right.
And
so you need like the right people to negotiate.
Right. And Tony said he'll stay in touch with us if we need him. Because he's going to be, he actually left because he lost his brother and his father passed away. So he left, but I think he's going to pick up another job working for the state. Sorry, bugs.
Yeah. Right.
For helping school districts get what they need, fundings and whatever, playgrounds or whatever. Right. He's very good at that.
So it sounds like your idea is...
And he can help with cities.
Okay. Yeah.
He's good. We're working with the city too. Because I had Suey and Tony at Applebee's, we were meeting, and at one time we were going to take 7th Street. They needed to expand the field for the kids. Talk to the neighbors in the area. We were going to take it from the corner of Broad and 7th up to the maintenance garage, cut that road off and use it for, like 6th Street was cut off for the football field, except for one thing. The residents on this side, there was 3 houses. We would leave them a roadway to go in and out. And then this portion on this side of the road would be for the school, and then everything up where the maintenance is, garage, that would all be tore down, and it would have been used for parking lot and for student activity, which everybody was for, but I got voted out of office and it fell apart.
Right. Okay, so then to summarize, sometimes when you're dealing with like the conflicting needs of the state and the city, having a liaison,
correct,
or a negotiator is key to convincing the state that, well, we have a particular situation here.
Yes.
Can you cut us some slack? And you have somebody in mind that could be that liaison.
And Tony's one of them, and he knows several others that he can introduce me to. See, I'm not running for office because, I want to be commissioner. I'm running for office because I've lived here my whole life. I love this city. I wouldn't be running around helping people and picking up their junk for them and getting rid of it for them because they couldn't do it on their own if I didn't care about the city and the people in it.
Right.
I do it because I care. And I wouldn't be a commissioner who would ride around and pick up trash behind a trash truck and use my own truck as well and work with the guys if I didn't care about the guys and the people that are supposed to be under me.
Right.
And I feel that I'm not over them. I am equal with them.
Right.
And
we came up with a similar conversation topic when Suey and I did the interview.
Right.
When I was a musician, the reason I was a bit successful with it is because I was there to help the people have a good time in the
Right.
audience, right? I'm not there to show off, or, I mean, sometimes you show off because
Yeah.
you're having fun on stage or whatever. But the primary thing is to help the audience have fun, dance, meet
Get
people,
them wound
socialize.
up. Yeah,
And
you're sort of like
similar-
community relations.
Right. There you go. That's one way to put it. But similarly, when you're working for public office, you're there to help the citizens
Right.
thrive.
You're not there for you. You're there for
right. Now, maybe some recognition and stuff
Right.
comes along the way, but that's not the primary reason that you're there.
No, just like I said on the school board, people are like, oh, why do you want to be on the school board? You don't get paid for it. I said, well, when you do something for your hometown, you don't always have to get paid for it. You do it because you care. So it's like you live in your parents' house like a lot of people do today, right? They don't ask you for no money to live there. You live there free. Well, I was brought up, you still do stuff. You ask them, is there anything I can do for you around the house? Or you just do it that
Yeah.
you see needs to be done. And that's what I feel like. I live in Millville. It's my house.
Right.
And the people here are family, and I want to do things to help.
Right.
So you wash my hands and I'll wash yours, and that's how we take care of people. And that's how Millville always was. I mean, we do have a lot of newer people that moved in from out of states and out of from Philly and stuff like that, and they're just trying to learn this way because they're saying hey, it's really a nice town. They're people, I like people, and they know certain areas they can't go to because of issues that are going on. But like I said, besides police uniforms presence, there's other ways to get rid of that and control people to make them see. The churches also need to be involved with it. Because without the churches used to be out all the time too and have functions.
Right.
So we can't leave everything up to just the city. We need the city's churches involved, and not just this church is over here and that church there. No, all the churches come together because St. Mary's used to at one time have a festival in August, and other churches came in and helped funded it too. And everybody just met there, and then they did one. They had part of it over in Wood School area too. And then other churches did it. After that was over, they would move the carnival stuff. It was after the fairground was over with. And they moved it to, which was the IGA parking lot, and most people know where that's at, near Millville Queen. And they'd had a little festival there. And that was in the 70s when I was a kid growing up.
So it's like a community effort, and
Right.
it sounds like perhaps certain areas, certain people, certain organizations kind of took that for granted for a while. And maybe we need to go back to
Yes.
community effort.
And then we had the Y, and the Y used to take in kids that couldn't afford a membership and bring them in, and they had activities and stuff for them. But we don't have the Y now
Right.
because it's a assistant living.
Okay. So it got taken over.
I have no clue what happened. It got taken over during the 80s, I guess, when I was running around partying when I was a kid.
I guess to finish it off, sometimes there are competing interests in the county. So we brought up the Middle Mile Broadband Project. And for those of you at home who don't know what that is, basically there are areas throughout the county that don't have great internet access or internet service. So through the Inflation Reduction Act, we got a grant to help put a ring of fiber around the county that would then create an opportunity for homes to connect to that ring around the county. And then maybe the service providers would also connect and connect people's homes in interest for competing, as in like Comcast might connect a bunch of people's homes so that they can get those customers, or Verizon might connect a bunch of people's homes so that they can get those customers. However, so we felt that for Millville's specific needs, it wasn't a top priority. And so now some of the county money is going to help fund that project, and maybe some of the Millville money is going to help fund that project, where maybe that money could go to more specific needs to Millville. So not necessarily going into the Middle Mile Broadband Project. How would you navigate making sure that Millville's needs are represented as opposed to different districts within the county?
Well, as you said, the state's giving money, county's giving money, and Millville has to hand over money too. The money that Millville has to hand over, I would just first look. First of all, I'd like to say Joe Durella started that program. I'm friends with Joe Durella. Okay, I'm Republican. I'm not Democrat. But I'm friends with Joe, and when he was commissioner, he did start the fiber optic running it. This is just to finish it off. Now on Millville's portion, I mean, I could see Suey's part of, like, say he had to give like $40,000 towards this project. He might be able to use that $40,000 more for police. But if there's Millville residents that aren't getting anything for the internet service, I'd like to see how much we could get, if it's, get it down from 40,000 to something else, because our students do need the internet for school, and they need it at home is what it's for, because they use their Chromebooks and a lot of other things. But so I don't think there's really that much of a dead space area that they can't get internet in town. So I would have to actually like get in. I'd have to see, like, if it's 40,000, can we get it down? If we really have to get it, have to use it, and see what the county can do, because Millville doesn't have a lot of money. And if we don't need it, then I'd like to see us get out of that issue and use that funding. Some people might say, oh, use it for the piping and plumbing for Laurel Lake. I would rather use that funding for police, for protection, and for the fire department for what they need, and rescue. That's for our citizens. But if there are some dead areas, say like one little small section of the town isn't getting it, and the kids do, and the families do need the internet, because you need that in today's world.
Yeah.
We can't do everything on cell phones. So I would have to weigh that out. But I would rather see it go to police and rescue and fire, if we don't really need to do that for the kids. Because I mean, in today's world, it is a necessity. But like I said, I don't know of any dead areas in the town. But if anybody does know there's any dead areas in town for the internet, please respond on Steve's site and let us know, or somehow get in contact with him or me, because I would like to know where these dead areas are too, since I'm running for office.
Yeah. So it sounds like you'd get into the nitty-gritty of specific projects and maybe break it down to how much do we actually need to cover, and then whatever excess there is, reallocate.
Yeah, I don't want them telling us that, oh, we need 40 million and then, or 40,000, and then we only really needed 20,000.
Sure.
Because if we're only doing a small section of town, why should we pay for another area outside of the city?
Yep. Got it. So I guess that'll be about it.
So I do want to say
thank
you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course.
And coming out to my house on my back porch, and sorry about the kitty cat. That was Carmel, his name is. But I'd like to say I've known Marissa since she was on the school board, and she's nice, and I like Marissa. And I actually took care of her brother, and her husband has a brother that was homeless on the street. Marissa's brother was, and I actually took him in. And I actually took him in this house here until he got back with his ex, which is Mary Messick's daughter. But at the particular time when I took the guy in, I had no clue that it was Marissa's brother-in-law. So yeah, that was interesting. And but I like Marissa. She's a nice lady, and she's got a good heart. And I met and spoke with Carol Casaboon. She was nice, and we talked. I thought she was a school teacher when I was in school, but she isn't. She was a secretary at...
A lot of my friends thought the same thing. I had a Casaboon, I think that was a math teacher in Vineland. It's been a long time.
There's a lot, there's a lot of Casaboons and Corsons in this area. My ex-fiance's was Ben Corson's grandfather, was her grandfather, and that's Corson Park is named after him, Ben Corson Park, because he was a big shot at Wheaton's, and they donated money to the town. So anyway, Carol is nice, and she works as a secretary at or she did, she retired now, at Holly Heights School. And then that's how I know the name Carol Cossaboon, because I used to go out to visit Holly Heights and talk with the principal. And then I did rounds around the school. Dr. Gentile didn't like that. He wanted me to go through him, but I didn't care. I told him, you work for me, I don't work for you.
Right.
So my thing was just to go out and talk to the principals and see what they needed. I wasn't there to hunt down problems.
Right.
And I want you to fix it. I wanted to hear his problems that he needed fixed.
Right.
So Carol, that's where I know her. She seems like a very nice lady. I don't know her real well, but she seems like a nice lady.
Yeah.
So this is time to pick your candidate you want. I call it commission wars. So.
Yeah, but you're also making it sound like it's not really like a war.
No.
You just pick which direction you want
to
based
go
off of
right.
plain information that's substantive. Right.
Because whoever gets this seat anyway, whoever it is, they have to run again next year. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a heck of a lot more names than 84 signatures.
Right. And, to clarify, I guess, the intention of the site is, it's not to start any extra problems or political wars or whatever. It's my specific problem was last year I got the sample ballot in the mail and I just couldn't find any information.
Yeah.
And you would think in the year 2024 you'd be able to do a couple Google searches and find stuff, but
what's funny is the Daily Journal really isn't the Daily Journal anymore.
Right.
It's owned by US Today.
Yep, I found that out when I kind of heard some things before I started all this, but then I called every phone number and every email and then didn't get any responses from them. And they obviously drove by the building on Oak Road in Vineland and it shut down. And it's just like, we can't really function like that.
No.
Right? We need at least somebody
I didn't know that
questions.
was shut down in Oak Road though, but...
Oh yeah, there's some sort of factory or something that's connected to it. So there are people there, but they told me, oh no, this shut down a couple years ago, blah, 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 blah. But, it's just, you got to have the information out there. Or
where the hell do they print the paper at that they get here? The US Today prints it and airs it here or something?
I don't know.
But I don't like the idea that a national newspaper is running our local town paper. That's why we don't have any reporters at any of our school functions or meetings, city meetings or anything.
Right. So, yeah, I'm just trying to help connect that dot when it comes to elections. Because people don't want to show up to every committee meeting. They don't want to go to every school board meeting. They want to know, okay, it's election time. Mm-hmm. Let's look at the information for a couple afternoons because it's all organized. Right. And then you make a choice. And you go back to the rest of your life.
Well, actually, you probably could meet up with the Reminder. They always look joint venturing with people. They got the paper, and you're going out getting the information.
Right.
You could connect your site with their site.
Right.
And then they can write what you do into a story. Mm-hmm. It might be a good business opportunity because local papers like that, like the Reminder, are shrinking.
Okay.
But because not many people are working as reporters, I guess, anymore, the way it seems like.
Right.
Local reporters. That's up to you, but I just figured I'd give you
an idea.
No,
it's a good tip. I'll definitely look into it. I'm just saying, I know Joseph Smith used to do the Daily Journal, and then I guess now he's working for the Courier Post, which is up in Camden.
Yeah.
So to your point, maybe there really aren't any reporters walking around doing anything. So, yeah.
No, that's why they're not down here.
Right. Anyway. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time too, because there was a lot of information that you brought up, whether from your little incident at the bar to all your takes on all the different issues.
Yes, and I put, I'll give you these. You can give them back to me a little later. If you can post them on your site so people can read them.
Yeah. I have a little system for getting screenshots, so I'll just take little pictures and it'll be up in a day or two. And
I'd like to tell everybody I am on the ballot and I'm number 2 under Carol Cossaboon. And I hope to have your vote because I care about the city and I want to finish what I started in 22. So I'd like to get back in there. So if you could have your vote, I'd greatly appreciate it. And if not, I understand.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Rob. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.